Executive Director of Common Sense Adoption Services. Welcome to our YouTube channel. This is the second video in a short series about the legal process as it pertains to foster adoptions. In this video, I want to talk about how the legal process works for foster families and when it really kind of kicks off for our foster parents as they're moving towards an adoption. So as I said in the last video, which really focused on the child and the child's family and what the legal process looks like for that side of the equation, now we've reached a point where there's presumably been a goal change and we're moving towards adoption. Once this process starts, this is when you as a now prospective adoptive parent start to be more involved in the legal proceedings. So just to recap a little bit, one of the things that's the real turning point for these cases is that we have to reach a point where the court, and this is the county court, has determined, and this is with the input of all of the parties involved in this case to this point, have decided that this child cannot return back to their birth family. They've ruled out kinship resources, and now we're moving towards a permanency plan, presumably now with you as the foster parents, as an adoptive resource. There's also the possibility that you're finding out about a child through our matching efforts who has been in foster care, is now moving towards adoption and is not currently placed in a home with a pre-adoptive family. So you may be just entering the picture at this point with a placement of a child who's ready to move forward for an adoption. So this video will pertain even to you as a family entering at this stage. So let's start with who all is involved. Who are the players from a legal standpoint when we've reached this point? Again, we have the county court. Generally, we're going to start with the court where the child is in custody, that county agency and their court. So there's judges and court masters, the county solicitor for the county with custody, the county children and youth agency, our agency as a provider agency, you as a family, and then also the child's guardian, their attorney will also be key players at this stage in the process. We may also begin involving another county court at this stage because let's say this child's from Northampton County, Pennsylvania, and you live in Cumberland County, or our agency is in Cumberland County. You have the option in most cases to do your formal adoption process through either the county where our agency is located, where you yourselves live, or where the child originates, the county agency that they're from. So this is something that gets sorted out at this stage in the process. So, and that's a venue issue, but this gives you a good sense of all the different sort of attorneys and legal aspects of a case once it reaches this point. This is also the stage where you yourself will need an attorney who can handle your adoption. The only exception to that is that sometimes we have cases where the county indicates that they will handle the adoption directly through their solicitor. This doesn't happen very often, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. Most of the time, a family will engage their own attorney who represents them and handles the adoption finalization. So, in order to get to this point, we've had the goal change hearing. We've also at least started the process of the termination of parental rights. So in order for any child to be adopted anywhere in the world, we have to first terminate the rights on the birth parents. So for children in foster care, this process is handled by the county agency and their solicitor in court where that child has been in custody. They will take the steps, and they have built the case and through the whole foster care process to then move forward with a termination of parental rights. Termination of parental rights can happen two different ways. One is that the birth parent signs consents and agreements allowing their rights to be terminated. In the other case, it has to be done involuntarily. That means the family is not cooperating with having their rights terminated, and the court will move forward and put forth cause for why that parent's rights should be terminated by the court. And again, a lot of this has been built through the last year or two that this child has been in foster care. They've built their grounds to be able to defend a decision to involuntarily terminate those rights. I think it's also important to note that we don't always terminate rights on just two parents. This can be a little confusing for families. We will always have a birth mother whose rights need to be terminated, but there are often more than one father whose rights may be terminated. And this isn't just about proving paternity. In some cases, there is DNA testing done to prove paternity that will identify who the biological father is. But sometimes we have an unknown birth father. We don't have paternity testing to definitively say who the father is. We also have situations where mother may have been in a marriage or other legally recognized relationship with what they call a putative or legal father. So even if he is not the biological father, he has some rights. So in those cases, you may see multiple fathers, named or unknown, whose rights are terminated through this process. So once a child is now what we call legally free, parental rights are terminated, or we're in the process of finalizing those terminations. At this point, a family can move forward with adopting that child. So in order to do this, you will need to update some documents in your file. A lot of the time courts require that there's a lot of updating done to the home study. You may need to do new clearances, provide updated financial information. This is all part of the packet of information that will go to the court as part of your adoption finalization. What's also happening is the county agency that has custody of that child is gathering all of the documents that they need to submit to the court in order for an adoption to move forward. So they're providing things like the child's original birth certificate, the termination of parental rights documents or TPR documents. They're presenting things like a consent. The agency, because they have legal custody of this child, have to consent to the adoption. Our agency, as a provider of services, also files certain reports for the court. These are often called intermediary reports. So all of this information is being collected and gathered. And while that's occurring, we are engaging your attorney in this process. They will have documents that they submit to you that need to be reviewed and signed and notarized. So it's really important as an adoptive family to be very engaged in this process, because delays on your end can mean that you don't get an adoption hearing very quickly. So work closely with your agency and the providers. This is also the time when we're working out adoption subsidy agreements. Those agreements are made with the county agency. We cannot move forward with an adoption finalization until an adoption subsidy agreement has been agreed to by all the parties. So there's a lot of things going on during this time. One of the things I'd like to point out is that we really encourage families to work with an attorney who's very knowledgeable, not only about adoption, but also handling an adoption case in a particular county venue. So we recommend some attorneys that we've worked successfully with. They understand the process. They've worked with us for many years and know how to move cases very quickly. They also are familiar with our local courts, so Cumberland, Dauphin County. If you live in, say, York County or another county and want to have your adoption done there, we may need to look for an attorney in that area that's familiar with that court and their processes, because they can vary slightly. So again, these are things that we're going to work with you as a client to make decisions about what makes the most sense for your case, what's the most efficient and effective way to get your adoption finalized in a timely manner. Maybe it's going to happen at the county that has custody and they're going to handle it. But these are all things we're going to talk with you about. So what's the timeline look like for this? Well, from the point where we've had that goal change, we have TPRs completed, and with terminations, there can be an appeal period. So that can hold up the timeline, that we're working with. But from the point that we really begin trying to get an adoption ready to finalize, I think it's reasonable to expect that this can take anywhere from 1 to 3 months to be ready to submit everything to the court and then request a date. So we might get everything done very quickly, but then the court can't get us on their docket for, say, a couple of months. These hearings, finalization hearings, are exciting celebrations. Families usually bring their closest friends and family. Now that we're out of COVID and can do them all live and in person, this is a day to celebrate. The hearing itself is typically very short. Judges love to get these on their docket because the truth is there aren't many happy occasions that happen in court. So we find judges will often really work diligently to try to get a finalization hearing scheduled quickly, so that everybody has a chance to have a happy moment in court. So this whole process, once we've reached those critical timelines with goal changes and all of that, really can happen very quickly, provided that you work with us to make sure all the nuts and bolts that have to be finished before everybody can sign off are done, and that we can get everything submitted so we have a timely court date. Costs associated with the legal process for you as a foster to adopt family is usually nothing. And again, this is very dependent on using attorneys who are approved, because those fees and costs are usually covered through your adoption subsidy agreement. So you don't have to worry that you're going to be paying big legal fees. If you're pursuing a private adoption, and that's not what we're talking about in these videos, a big part of your cost will be the legal process. But for foster adoption cases, those fees are typically covered in the county subsidy agreement, so you should not have out-of-pocket legal expenses. So thanks for joining me for this video, a quick run through the legal process. In the next video, I'm going to talk about how to prepare for court. So thank you for joining us. I'm Erin Chick with Common Sense. If you have questions, give us a call, check us out on social media, and check out our website. Thanks.